Díomh agus gur mí amagad Anna as sin. It's mór gom bhean seo libh agus trúcha bhliain de Pobal a chéúra. Before I gom bheith in ann bheith gobar le Pobal, tharna blianta chun taú leis na grúpaí agus an daoine ar an imil dar co-Pobal. It's really a pleasure for me to be here this morning as a minister, but also someone who's worked in the community and voluntary sector for a long time, and for someone who's worked in organisations where when the word Pobal was mentioned, not exactly everyone reacted with delight and joy about it. But I'm really glad to be here because the work of Pobal often goes unsung. It's sometimes misunderstood as well, and I'm very happy to be here to deliver the message on behalf of government on the importance of the work of Pobal and how it helps us in government, but I think collectively in society, achieve what we want to achieve in terms of social inclusion. As Minister of State for Community Development, Integration and Charities, I've seen firsthand the positive impacts of the numerous programmes Pobal has helped design, implement and oversee over the past 30 years, from early childhood supports and childcare schemes to inclusion and community development programmes. My officials in both the Department of Children Equality, Disability Integration and Youth, and in the Department of Rural and Community Development, and in the Department of Social Protection, appreciate the work of Pobal to support critical service delivery over the last 30 years. Likewise, I want to take this opportunity to express my own appreciation for the vital services Pobal has and continues to provide both to the government and to the countless organisations and people across the country who avail of these much needed supports. It strikes me that Pobal's core values of collaboration, inclusion, integrity, service excellence and transparency are markedly similar to the values of the Department of Rural and Community Development. Our values of respect, integrity, connectedness and innovation go hand in hand with Pobal's. And I have no doubt these shared principles have contributed greatly to the enormous success of Pobal's partnership with the RCD and its predecessors over the past 30 years. I'd like to touch on the shared vision, passion and commitment both Pobal and my department hold for developing and supporting inclusive, strong communities across Ireland. The mission of the Department of Rural and Community Development is to promote rural and community development and to support vibrant, inclusive and sustainable communities throughout Ireland. Likewise, the vision set out in Pobal's strategic plan is to create an equal and inclusive society in partnership with government and communities. Of course, it's no accident that these objectives are so similar to that of my department, and this is demonstrated practically by a strong, collaborative and engaged relationship with my department and Pobal. It's a relationship of mutual respect, firmly rooted in the spirit of cooperation, a cooperative partnership where both my department and Pobal challenge, adapt and innovate, always towards a shared vision of a socially inclusive Ireland. I know that Pobal delivers on its mission statement year after year in working with my department and indeed with many government departments that engage its expertise and services. For the last 30 years, Pobal have worked on behalf of government across many areas with community and inclusion always at the heart of their service. And in 2022 alone, over €900 million in government funding was distributed by Pobal to local and national community organisations across a wide spectrum of programme areas. My Department of Rural and Community Development is a relatively young one, but in the past 6 years it has built and developed significant programmes to deliver positive change for individuals and communities across Ireland, and this would not be possible without the knowledge, the skills and the support provided by Pobal. So I'm very happy to be here today to commemorate Pobal's 30th anniversary and to speak to some of the ways in which Pobal, government and the many people we serve work effectively together to enhance social inclusion and support communities. On behalf of the RCD, Pobal has managed and supported the Social Inclusion and Community Activation Programme (SICAP), the Community Development Pilot Programme, the Scheme to Support National Organisations, the Senior Alert Schemes that I mentioned, and the Community Services, along with many others, along with providing input on a variety of other initiatives and schemes overseen by my department. And I just want to touch briefly on some of these. The Community Services Programme supports over 420 community-based organisations to provide local services through a social enterprise model. The CSP provides an annual co-funding contribution to managers and full-time staff equivalents as well. Pobal were proactive in working with my department in the redesign of the CSP programme in 2022 to give effect to the recommendations arising out of the Indicon report of the CSP programme. And just as an example, in County Galway alone, the CSP supports 21 organisations with an allocation of over €2.6 million. Innovation is part of their work as well, and supporting innovation. Pobal also administered a pilot bike and e-bike upcycling initiative that I initiated with the Department of Transport, and again that's got a very Galway flavour to it, with Westside Resource Centre and on Metal Rubber in County Galway receiving funding under that programme. As part of a larger dormant accounts funded project, and again here we look at innovation, looking at the engagement of marginalised communities in local planning and decision making. I recently launched the resource guide on inclusive engagement, co-written by Pobal and community sector organisations, to help organisations to ensure participation and engagement is meaningful, that barriers are identified and broken down, and that decision making is something everyone can be a part of. We've all made submissions to processes run by different state bodies where at the end of the process and after it we haven't felt that our views have been represented or visible. This is something we're aware of, it's something Pobal is aware of, and this is an example of a way that we're trying to work through that and make state policies more representative of everyone in society, not just the majority. Pleased to say also, Pobal have been leading on this work, but on behalf of the department, this includes delivery of capacity building on this particular project, training, creation of resources, and working with a number of pilot areas to test strategies in the context of engagement by local authorities in their local economic and community plans. So I'm pleased to say that Galway was one such pilot area where significant progress was made by Galway City Community Network and Galway City Council, and this was showcased at the launch of the resource guide. And an updated resource guide will be available shortly, which will include the learnings from the experience of Galway City and other pilots. Do also want to take the opportunity, and I'm sorry I didn't bring one with me because I do like to show it to people as well, but the values and principles of collaboration and partnership with the community and voluntary sector. It's a very important document. It's potentially transformative if we use it as we should. That sets an agreed common ground and shared ambition, and it's significant that every government department, public agency and local authority are now required to apply the values and principles in their engagement with the community and voluntary sector. And I know that Pobal are already leading the way in placing such values and principles at the heart of what they do. And we'll be looking for a regular update from government departments in terms of how they're actually implementing these values that they've agreed to work on with the community and voluntary sector. To support the capacity of the community and voluntary sector, my department has also been working with Pobal on a substantial research project on the training needs of the sector and its support structures to identify areas of improvement to further empower the sector to achieve its objectives, and I look forward to publishing these research reports and an agreed implementation plan later this year. In times of crisis too, Pobal have stood beside us in delivering key supports to the sector, working with us to design very quickly and under a lot of pressure schemes like the Stability Fund in response to COVID and the Community and Voluntary Energy Support Scheme as well. These schemes have ensured that the sector could continue to deliver critical supports and services to community in the midst of the pandemic and the energy crisis as well. The scheme to support national organisations provides multi-annual funding towards the core costs of national organisations in the community and voluntary sector, will focus on addressing poverty, social exclusion and promoting equality. And Pobal's key responsibilities include the appraisal of these applications, contract and financial management, providing supports to grant recipients and performance management. I'll always take the opportunity to mention SciCap. I've done so already, but I think Pobal's role here is key as well, and has supported us in the delivery of SciCap. And obviously it's a key programme in terms of addressing high and persistent levels of deprivation through targeted and innovative locally led approaches, supporting disadvantaged communities and individuals. And I'm interested to hear that the new deprivation index is coming out soon as well. It's something that I've been keenly awaiting as well. We're working with fairly dated data at the moment, so it's good that we've got that coming on board soon. 2022 alone, SciCap delivered over 123,000 supports to over 30,000 individuals, and nearly 20,000 supports were provided to over 2,700 community groups. Additionally, 560 social enterprises received supports under the programme, and Pobal have provided substantial support over the lifetime of the current programme, including the development of the IRIS reporting system. So they're big numbers, they're stats, they're important to know the scale and the reach of SciCap, I think, as well. But really the value of SciCap, and it was supported by Pobal as well, is the one-to-one interactions that community workers have with individuals in poverty across the country on a daily basis. And that's how I try to describe it to my colleagues who might not have been previously familiar with SciCap. It's 600 plus community workers on the ground across the country on a daily basis that are reaching people who need it most. So I'm going to skip some of this because you've heard a little bit of it before, but I do think it's worth noting as well that SciCap was awarded the prestigious United Nations Public Service Award in the category of institutional resilience and innovative responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. And unfortunately, there wasn't an award ceremony at the UN. I think SciCap would have been at it otherwise. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank Pobal for their input in the application process and all the stakeholders that have contributed to the success of SciCap. It's wonderful for the programme, I think, to be recognised at this international level. I'm going to try and condense things a little bit for you here now as well. In government, we do this process called a periodic critical review, where on a regular basis we look at government agencies or agencies used by government to see if they're doing what we want them to do. We carried out one of these exercises with Pobal recently, and it came out, not surprisingly, very well, I think. As part of the review, a consultation process was carried out with key stakeholders and organisations who interact with Pobal in their day-to-day operations, and this process was key to review, and the quality and depth of responses received showed a keen interest in Pobal across the pillars of the review. Now, a key takeaway from this feedback was the strong local relationships nurtured by Pobal staff, with dedicated development officers and coordinators singled out for praise by numerous organisations. The review also recognised the efficiency, the effectiveness and flexibility to adapt that Pobal has demonstrated over the years, delivering a wide range of programmes and indeed launching several major initiatives under tight time constraints. A number of challenges and areas for improvement were identified during the review, which concluded that Pobal continues to be a crucial partner to government, providing significant value in the efficient and effective delivery of the programmes administered. A total of 28 recommendations arose from the periodic critical review across 3 strategic areas: the external environment, organisational capacity and organisation performance. And I'm happy to say that Pobal immediately set about implementing these recommendations and ensured that they were reflected in their strategic plan through to 2026. And as of now, the vast majority of the recommendations in the report have been actioned and completed by Pobal, with the small remainder being implemented on an ongoing basis. I would like to say also, I think the openness, the professionalism and the drive to improve demonstrated by the Pobal board, its CEO and its staff in addressing the recommendations of the PCR has been notable, and my officials and I believe that our Pobal colleagues would agree the review process has served to enhance and strengthen all of our working relationships. So kind of going a little bit more broadly and for not too much longer, the social and economic landscape in Ireland, I think, is evolving and changing. Our population is growing, our communities are becoming more diverse, and while this is welcome, the risk of more members of our communities becoming marginalised will also grow unless the appropriate strategies and supports are in place. A greater focus on integration, inclusion and celebrating the diversity of our communities will be key to my department's, various departments and government's objectives in the coming years. There will be challenges, no doubt, but we are confident that the strong relationship that we have with yourselves in Pobal and our mutual commitment to tackling issues of exclusion, deprivation and marginalisation will see us deliver robust supports to those who need it most. As we know, one of the key aims in government is to provide strong community supports to empower and develop communities that value the health and well-being of all. And today's event, I think, will help showcase what is being done in organisations and services across the region to fulfil that goal. And we have an excellent panel of speakers coming up. Dr. Rita Melia, Martin Ward, my former colleague Kinsika will be discussing their work and research into enhancing social inclusion. To wrap up, I just want to offer my congratulations to Pobal on reaching their 30th anniversary. It's a very significant milestone, I think, and I want to thank Anna in particular for her invitation to speak to you all here today. And I'd like to thank the Chair of the Public Board, Rosario Mannion, and the board members who have been key to the success of the organisation, to the senior leadership team in Pobal, and all of the staff in Pobal, past and present. I thank you very sincerely on my own behalf and on behalf of all our officials for your support, your professionalism, and your friendship. I have no doubt that Pobal will continue to thrive over the coming years, and it will continue its vital role in partnership with government and communities to foster an equal and inclusive society in Ireland. Thank you.